First, you must realize that you have no idea before you can know the idea. We scan across all the frequencies if we want to learn anything new. Let us begin.
What has physics done for me lately?
Furthermore, the equation E is equal mc squared.
We have now acquired a fateful power to alter and to destroy nature.
That's like when you're in physics and you go to Dreamworld saying, oh, this is a physics excursion.
Science. What is it all about?
The whole of human history all falls in the dust of one stroke of the nail file. You can't really get to grips with evolution unless you realise what an enormous amount of time.
Our own planet is only a tiny part of the vast cosmic tapestry, a starry fabric of worlds yet untold.
You're tuned into what can only be described as the best radio station on this blue dot we call Earth. It is, of course, 4ZZZ, where community sounds different. Be it on your conventional wireless radio by tuning into the classic frequency of 102.1 FM, digital devices such as DAB or smart speaker, listening via the Community Radio Plus app, or streaming us live from our sensational website at 4zzz.org.au. And of course, you can always listen back to us or any other Triple Z show for that matter using the ingenious on-demand feature, also found at that URL. We also now have a weekly podcast of the show for your listening pleasure, curated by Toby, a condensed version of the show which Gabe listens to at the gym. It has no music. Just search for our show name, which is, of course, No Idea, spelt with a K, your weekly dose of science. And joining me today for the Radiothon special are some of my favourite science communicators. May I please welcome... Good morning, Master Peta.
Good morning, Max.
Good morning, Master Gabe. You're
Morning.
back.
Now, Max, I've got a sound for you this morning.
Oh, have you?
He loves having a sound.
Can you hear it?
No.
Oh. It's a dead air, Max. The sound of community radio.
That's right.
Sounds different, doesn't it?
And what we want to happen, if people just subscribe today, we want to hear this sound. And that means someone subscribes to No Idea. Job done.
Cool. Max, it is Radiothon. It's the one show every year we go hard, sort of fluffing ourselves up a bit to make sure that we can keep broadcasting all the rest of the shows for the rest of the next 51 weeks coming up before Radiothon the next year. Bit of a year-to-year sort of thing. Keeping ourselves going paycheck to paycheck.
I'm still waiting for mine.
A long time.
Is there something I don't know?
So over the
we got a
next...
subscriber.
I can get it off for it. Goodness gracious, Max.
That's a lot.
All right, I want to hear that as many times as possible and then never again.
Going back to the harp seal. I'm letting you have today, and then it's back to the seal.
Okay.
Coming up on the show, Max, I've got some stuff about some archaeologists who have decided to study the International Space Station.
Yes,
of all
they
things.
have. Yeah. Very
Peter,
good.
what do you got coming up?
I've got some whales, which is going to be fun, and something else that I've forgotten.
The sea lions with the cameras on them?
Sea lions.
There you go.
Cameras on them. No,
You got a whole
this is a
story written.
quality show.
Yeah.
Quality show, and I put a lot of effort into it.
That's right. And
Max, what do you got?
I'm talking about tipsy fruit flies. So
Tipsy fruit flies. Let's play a bit of music first.
Yes, let's get into it.
Community means caring about people, not profit margins. And community sounds different on air.
Each year, 4ZZZ embarks on a major fundraiser, Radiothon, where we ask for support from you in the community to keep us broadcasting.
This is so we can keep bringing you the music, news, and voices that you care about. No analytics, no focus groups, no homogeneity.
Head to 4zzz.org.au and subscribe today.
You tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea, your weekly dose of science with me, Max, Peter, and Gabe. And we have to thank Amy from Kalanga for supporting this 4ZZZ, because it's
Thanks,
Radiothon.
Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Job done.
All right.
You ready for some of this?
Different. Different.
You know it. Who wants to kick it off? So smooth, isn't it?
No, what else? That's so funny.
You could to go?
You know what? It's actually really good because the first line of my script says, "This isn't really weird science."
It's different.
So I guess it's just different science. It's just different science than I've done before.
Yeah.
What they found is weird and pretty cool, and we're going to be talking about whales. Because I'm the marine science person, so we're talking about whales. I like whales. I like whales and other things in water. So a bunch of researchers are on a trip looking at whales. And just sorry to bring the mood down, but just so you know, the countries that provided these scientists aren't historically or modernally good with whales.
They're Japanese, are they?
One of them. Other countries too, some Nordic people who we also know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm honestly not sure what the real purpose of this trip was.
Yes.
But I'm just going to report on this specific data they got, and we're going to think about that quietly in the back of our minds for the rest of the day. So, they're going around looking at whales. Specifically, they're tagging bowhead whales. So these are they're some of the longest lived mammals in the world, and they look real weird. They've got a giant dent in their head, essentially. It's like if you'd saddled one right over its eyeballs for a year, and then it had that weird, if you have a headphone bump in a whale. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what a bowhead whale looks like. And they're really cool whales, but we don't know much of them at all. They spend a lot of time diving. They're pretty big. They're pretty remote, blah, blah, blah. So these scientists go and tag...
Sorry.
Jesus.
Thank you for subscribing.
Subscribing. We really appreciate it. They go and they tag 12 bowhead whales to track their dives, the depth, timing, blah, blah, blah. And they detected a 24-hour dive cycle in spring, which follows the vertical migration of their prey instinct. Very cool, very cool, very boring, very boring. We already guessed that. We know that happens. Whatever. Yeah, it's proof. Yeah, it's the first time. Whatever. What was cooler was that they discovered 2 whales diving in sync over the course of a week. So apparently the timing of these dives, they were just really closely timing them from very far away. So the closest they were within this week was 5 kilometers apart, and the furthest away was 100 kilometers apart. And all throughout this week, they were just timing, so they'd dive at the same time and come up at the same time for a week. Kilometers and kilometers apart, tens of kilometers apart. And the scientists think that is just way too crazy a coincidence, and that these whales must be communicating over that extreme distance. And they think that because they only did that matching and syncing behavior while they were in acoustic range, because as we know, sound travels very far in the ocean, so it goes hundreds of kilometers. So they were well, only when they were in the acoustic range did they sync their dives. But the scientists weren't recording. There was no hydrophones, so they can't actually tell if they were exchanging calls, if they were talking to each other. They say in the study, they're look, this is just from on-surface activity that we're measuring, but we think it might be happening. And they were look, this has been theorized before. In 1971, this theory first appeared of whales talking and sinking dives over long distances. But this research isn't conclusive, so they had a little thing down the bottom being hi, other whale researchers, can you please help us fill the gap in this research, which I thought was really cute. But yeah, so they found essentially a long distance whale couple.
Where have you gone?
Where did you go?
No, you're still alive.
Oh goodness, that sounds like Community, guys. I don't know. I kind of expected some reaction.
I love
to
a
my
bit of dead
fantastic
radio.
story, Max, and you just
are we finished? Are we? Are we finished?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I have some applause, please, Max? I just feel like that. I really was.
Yeah. Sorry. Let's get back into the music. Eh? Are we finished or not?
Yay! Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Amazing. Whales are great. Okay, now you're finished. Get back to music. Whatever.
At 4ZZZ, everything you hear is real. Real people, real passion. If you subscribe this radiothon, not only will you help keep us on air, but you can win some great prizes. Head to 4ZZZ.org.au to learn more. 4ZZZ, community sounds different.
You're tuned into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max. We've got V in the studio. Good morning, V.
Good morning, Max.
We've got Peter. We've got Gabe.
Different.
What do you got for us, Gabe?
It's so wonderfully bad, man. It's just unbelievable. It is. Community sounds different if you've just tuned in. It's Radiothon, which is the 1 week a year where we drive for subscribers to keep the station running for the next year.
Literally in this for today. We are
literally today.
driving. Yeah.
You're throwing the car sound down every time someone subscribes, Max. So hop onto the 4ZZZ.org.au website and have a look at the Radiothon stuff there to see if you can support 4ZZZ. While you do that, Max, I have a story. I was so happy when I found this story because it was just like Radiothon. I feel like we need to just bring a different game of stories.
Yes.
Sometimes you just need one that sort of wraps stuff up. This one hits so many of our good points. By the end of this,
We have good points.
Peter's going to have a meltdown
Oh, no.
about another acronym.
Oh, yes.
I would have stolen some space news from Max, and I think V's going to also have a bit of a meltdown about the methods that were used in this study.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, God.
Of all the areas that humans have ever inhabited, what do you reckon is one of the most observed, like living spaces for humans?
Oh,
Cities.
like specifically? Yes.
I would say.
Cities, probably.
Okay.
Or like the coastal areas.
I would put forward the International Space Station.
Right.
As one of the most studied and observed places ever. And I bring this up because it's nearing the end of its life. And it's been over its 23 years. Massive, long, young 23 years of life.
Long, young.
270 people have visited. Yeah. 270 people have visited and lived in that capsule structure. Who knows how many hours of streaming video has been done inside its quarters, how much research has been done inside, studying every inch of the thing. But at that ripe age of 23, some archaeologists have decided that the ISS is now fair game for archaeology.
Oh my God. This is so good.
Fair enough.
And they come from a couple of institutions. One of them is Chapman University. This is where the lead author was from. Anyone want to have a guess at a QS ranking?
Chapman.
Never
Chapman.
heard of that. Where is it? Never heard of it.
In California, US.
Is it? Okay, it'd be 200.
600.
340.
No QS ranking.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're
It
these
did
kind
rank
of archaeologists.
in the like 130s in the US, and it says it's one of the best universities in Orange.
We talked about this, saying you are one of the best universities. You can only say that. Country. City is so out of it. You cannot say you're one of the best universities in a city. That's so embarrassing.
Anyway, these archaeologists who do come from... Also, I think there was one from Flinders Uni in Australia, so we can't be too mean.
Okay. Oh, they're great. No.
They've used a technique that usually is used to study buried historical sites, and they've applied that technique to the International Space Station.
What, digging?
Digging is what it usually is, yes.
Yes.
It's called...
Get out of it.
It's often... Thank you for subscribing.
Yeah, that was
thank you for remembering
Cheryl
the
from
sound,
Logan
Max.
Home. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. So yeah, they call it often the shovel test pit as a thing. So it's sort of like random sampling, like you're doing a lot of things. You have a partially buried or buried historical site. You make 1 meter by 1 meter quadrats. You dig down. You do sampling of what's there. You extrapolate across, or use it as a way of like figuring out what to do next. That's the general idea.
But the space station isn't buried.
Correct. Thank you. Someone figured it out. There's no digging to do on the ISS, so they had to use a similar technique, but they didn't use that name because obviously there's no shoveling involved or pits involved. So, you ready for what it's called?
No.
It's called the Sampling Quadrangle Assemblages Research Experiment. Which is quite a mouthful, but it's okay because it makes an acronym of the SQUARE technique.
Yeah, nice. I was writing it down as you were doing it.
I know you guys are expecting a reaction, but I have no words. I will say it's not as bad as a chew. I still hate a chew more. A chew runs through my veins of hatred. Square is, just say you're doing quadrats. Like, just go, we used quadrats, like every other science.
Sampling Quadrangle Assemblages Research Experiment, the SQUARE technique.
Sorry, I missed research experiment. Research experiment.
I like the assembly bit. Okay.
In January 2022, the researchers say, we asked the space station crew to lay out 5 roughly square sample areas.
Sorry, so it's not even a square.
Oh, we'll get there. We chose the square locations to encompass zones of work, science, exercise, and leisure. The crew also selected a 6th area based on their own idea of what might be interesting to observe. So some very biased, very biased sampling areas.
That's how we sample inside.
But it is
I look
the
at a rock
ISS.
and I'm like, wow, that's a cool rock. I'm going to look at that one.
Yeah.
And then they took photos. The astronauts took photos of each of the 6 squares. The 60 days. I'm still not used to that.
That's Yulva from Yoronga.
Subscribing.
Thank you, Yulva.
Thank you.
V, have you got a computer up or Max? I want
Max
you to pull up the No Idea page just while I'm talking about this to have a look at one of the squares. I put it up on our show page for the week.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
So would you like to know what information archaeologists gleaned from the photos of 6 squares on the ISS?
No.
I would guess that astronauts are bored.
Too bad. They only released findings for 2 of the squares.
Oh.
The other 4 they haven't gotten to yet. So we only get,
Yeah, it takes time.
How
you see
complex
it
could
there,
these
Max?
squares be?
Your squares, yeah, with the yellow dots.
How would you describe that square?
A rectangle.
Yes, and me too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So that was one of them. So I think that was the one I'm going to talk about now, that rectangular one.
Yeah, cool.
For what it's worth, this is where my piss taking stops a bit because the next bit's quite interesting.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So this was located in one of the modules where there are 4 crew berths and connections to the European and Japanese labs. They say visiting spacecraft often dock here, and their target was a wall of the maintenance work area. So there's a blue metal panel with 40 Velcro squares on it and a table below for fixing equipment or doing experiments. It was meant to be this maintenance area. However, they said they basically saw no evidence of people using it for maintenance work. Only a handful of science activities were undertaken there. And for 50 of the 60 days of the survey, the square was only used for storing items which may not have even been used there.
Really?
Thank you for subscribing. Getting there.
Subscribing.
Yeah.
So it's just a bench. Like
It's not a bench. It's like Velcro storage against the wall.
Sorry, I forgot they don't have gravity. My point is, it's just a surface.
It's storage.
And we are all humans, so we just put things on surfaces.
Yeah.
That was Natalie from Orkenflower. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Natalie.
And then in the other square, they found, which was, where the exercise machines and the toilet are located. It's near there.
In the same
It's also
place?
a passageway. No, different spot.
Okay.
Next to each other. It's in that zone. It's also a passageway to the crew's favourite part of the space station, which is the 7-sided cupola window, and to storage modules. This wall had no designated function, so it was used for eclectic purposes like storing a laptop, antibacterial experiment, and resealable bags. There was also, for 52 of the 60 days, is where someone kept their toiletries in this random spot.
Oh, why not?
That is so
reason,
cute.
It's cute, right?
They're just like me in my bedroom.
Yeah. It's a bit like, what's the game? Unpacking? The Aussie game where you like have to just unpack someone's room. I would play an ISS version of that. So the thing that I found actually genuinely interesting off this was what they realized was the importance of what they call active and potential gravity. You kind of touched on it already, Peter. But they say that often these areas are used for very different reasons. And
that's Ari from Yoronga.
Thank you, Ari, from what they were attended. And they say these reasons were often driven by the lack of gravity on the ISS, or rather the lack of what we expect to be gravity. They have a different sort of fake gravity, but they also then rely on a lot of Velcro straps, things to tie things down to make up for the lack of gravity. And they say restraints used to hold an object form a patch of active gravity, while those not in use represent potential gravity. So the artifact analysis shows how much potential gravity is available at each location. And so they've sort of framed it as this idea. I know it's just storage space on the ISS, but effectively these regions, one didn't have a purpose designated by NASA, the other, which had a purpose of maintenance, became dominated by the fact that they just had a potential gravity in, just everywhere for people to use to stick stuff against the wall, hold things down in a space where you don't have gravity, things just float off, you need to tie everything down. So that dominated the use of the space, was how much potential gravity it had available.
But what they really mean by potential gravity is potential storage.
Velcro, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not gravity. Anyway, these people test
Very
me.
good.
They test me every day.
That's it.
I love this story so much.
I think it's cool.
I love that.
Do you know one of the biggest gripes of the ISS and the way it's been designed when they asked some of the astronauts that came back, they said they wish that they had a bit more personal space where the toilet was. So where you do your business is not necessarily enclosed.
Oh, what? Why not? Like, what's the purpose of it not being? That's my. Is there any reason, or are they just like they're astronauts?
I think it's just
they'll deal
space.
with it?
Just space.
Maybe walls take up space.
Yeah, too heavy.
Hi, I'm Daniel, a volunteer producer here at 4ZZZ. Sometimes we use royalty-free sound effects in the stings and spots that we make for the radio. So to me, community kinda sounds like these royalty-free carrot chopping sounds that I found. It's Radiothon at 4ZZZ, where community sounds different. Subscribe now at 4ZZZ.org.au.
Izzy, you are a splendid human being, and there's nothing that makes me happier than listening to you generally. It's generally on Wednesday morning when you're with No Idea before Eco Radio, and I'm generally coming out of a doctor's appointment, and to hear these voices on the air always makes me laugh though with No Idea, because you do have the F1, which, I don't know, like, yes, mechanical, it's all very, very strong and powerful, but science, I love it.
Yeah, Gabe, we got the F1, mate. How good's that? On the science show.
Interesting.
There seem to be some edits in that.
Something just seemed to be missing. There's a bit about like, it's mechanical, but
there might be some edits in this.
Different.
What I got for you today is alcohol consumption occurring in a solitary or social setting is known to produce different, get that, behavioural responses. For example, social drinking is generally associated with positive effects, while drinking alone can be linked to negative effects. However, the actual...
Sorry, did you just say drinking together is generally with good effects?
Yeah, it is, until you have too much, I guess. But
in moderation.
In moderation.
Okay. That's such a big caveat. That's a huge thing to throw out on the science show. Can we say whether that's a Marxism or whether that was in the study?
Yeah, it's right. I don't know. However, the actual neurobiological mechanism by which the social engagement or lack thereof during alcohol intake impacts on behavioural responses remains, there you go, Peter, poorly understood. Until now, a team from the University of Texas at El Paso, QS ranking, it's a range.
Is it Texas at El Paso?
Yes, it is.
1,000 to 1,500.
Yeah, you're close.
Big.
To 1,200, yeah.
Oh.
Performed a novel alcohol study using fruit flies, specifically the Canton S fruit flies, a wild strain of fruit fly. Although fruit flies might seem like an unusual choice of test subject, they surprisingly share about 75% of the same genes that cause human disease. Now, the Texas team's experiments consisted of exposing the fruit flies, either alone or in a group setting, to ethanol vapor and measuring their average speed to determine the degree of ethanol-induced response. Flies that drank alone displayed a slight increase in movement, while flies exposed to ethanol in a group setting displayed significantly increased speed and movement. The researchers then heightened the levels of dopamine in two groups of flies, while another two groups had normal levels of dopamine serving as the control. The team found that the flies, regardless of whether they had normal or increased levels of dopamine, had a similar reaction to ethanol in a solitary setting. But in social settings, the flies with increased dopamine showed even more heightened hyperactivity than usual. The
They're
team
essentially doing the drunk girl run.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
That's right.
Like when you go, I've got nothing to live for, you're like running down the streets of the valley with your like heels in your hand, purse going over. Like that's what these flies are doing. Is what you're saying.
Basically, yeah, totally.
Great.
And their task was then to identify which of the 5 dopamine receptors in the brain is the largest contributor to the process. They found that the D1 dopamine receptor was the most important to flies' reaction to ethanol in a social setting. It should be noted that the human D1 receptor gene is linked to alcohol use disorder, and it would seem that this study provides validation. The team's next step is to explore the intricacies by which the D1 dopamine receptor serves as the central point for the signals that contribute to the ethanol, social interaction, and alcohol use disorder. Done. Yeah.
Oh, is that what you needed me to do earlier? It's just saying
pretty
done.
well, yeah.
Was that what you're looking for? Done.
Over and out.
Full stop.
Max, it's Radiothon this week.
It is.
Which means it's the 1 week of a year where we go pushing, subscribing to 4ZZZ because it's what quite literally keeps us on air for the next year.
Yeah,
and that's what happens when you subscribe. You get that beautiful sound gracing your ears. If you haven't subscribed to 4ZZZ, if you've had your subscription lapse, or if you haven't ever subscribed, just jump onto 4ZZZ.org.au. Have a look. We'll talk about the prizes and stuff you can win over the next couple of days.
From West End. Suin from West End.
Thank you, Suin. Thank you, Suin.
Yeah, we'll have a chat about some of the prizes you can win and stuff later on in the show, because there's a whole bunch of things that get donated to 4ZZZ that we can then gift to people as prizes who, randomly based on who subscribes during Radiothon. But let's play a bit of music first, hey?
4ZZZ has been offering an alternative voice to the vested interests of commercial media for almost 50 years. Now, in a world with more clickbait than ever, we're still delivering independent journalism that brings you stories you won't hear anywhere else. You can support a real voice this Radiothon by subscribing to 4ZZZ. Head to 4ZZZ.org.au. Community sounds different.
Okay, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
The latest expedition team on the ISS, the International Space Station, what number expedition do you reckon it is?
30.
Oh, I thought you gave for your favourite number.
69.
It is!
It is?
It is! Yes, we've got Issy in the room.
Hello. That's a good entrance line for Issy.
Yes, sir. All lined up.
That's right. You tune into 4ZZZ and the show is No Idea with me, Max V, Issy, Gabe, and our friendly neighbourhood marine scientist, Peta.
Yeah, that's me. I am the friendly neighbourhood marine scientist. I'm here to tell you about everything under the sea.
Yeah.
And though I think you know that I've always agreed with that well-known talking crab that life is better under the sea. I have to admit that we still don't really know what that looks like.
SpongeBob reckons it is.
Okay.
Wow.
I'll take your word for it. I'm glad you're to him personally.
I'm sure he does. Yeah.
The famous talking crab, SpongeBob.
Max, be for real. Did you know who I was talking about?
No.
Okay, it's Sebastian from The Little Mermaid. There's a whole song about it. Under the sea.
Oh, yeah,
That was a pretty well-known reference.
Yeah. Nice.
That's okay.
Okay.
Never assume
That was
anything
not
on this
obscure.
show.
It was like not a deep cut.
Really light cut, like surface level, ocean level cut. So anyway, the fact is that we don't really know what the ocean looks like. A lot of the ocean floor is still unknown to us. In fact, worldwide, only 26% of the seabed has been mapped in high resolution. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you're right. This is largely due to difficulties exploring the deep sea. Because, lots of high pressure, it's very deep down, and there's literally no light, so it's quite difficult to map things with cameras. But it is still an issue, even in coastal or semi-coastal areas, and that's largely because of one thing. What do you guys think is the reason we haven't mapped a lot of areas?
Well, they are now with satellite. They're using satellites now to determine
under the water, like the seafloor.
Yeah, they can determine the seafloor using the satellites now.
In very coastal areas, not that deep.
Okay.
Satellites can't go that deep.
Okay.
So for deep seafloor, what's the main reason we haven't seen it?
Light.
Like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Horrors. Okay, guys. It's because we don't breathe underwater.
For real?
Stop you. I thought I'd get really good answers and then have like the dumb one, but I got nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was like a joke. Anyway, do you know what is built to go under the ocean?
Sea lions.
Sea lions!
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, I
And
knew this is where you're heading. Nice.
That's good.
Am I redeemed
glad to have
myself?
your approval.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly why a team of researchers from the University of Adelaide, QS ranking.
They're pretty good now, aren't they? They're like 83.
134.
150.
Axe. They're 82.
Yeah.
Give us a round of applause. That's pretty bloody good.
Yeah.
One off. So these researchers from the University of Adelaide stuck some cameras on Australian sea lions. Now, Australian sea lions are incredible animals. They're spending most of their time at sea foraging for food on the continental shelf. And in my opinion, they're some of the cutest animals we have in Australia. They're often called dogs of the sea because they really do have a really similar look and nature. They're like inquisitive and playful, and they've got these big doe eyes and their tiny little external ears. And apparently the Western Australian Museum describes their face shape as Labrador-like. I mean, come
that's
on.
nice, eh?
Come
Peer
on.
reviewed.
Peer reviewed. I have peer reviewed that as a peer, and I say yes, they do like Labradors.
Yeah.
So they hunt at depths between 20 and 100 meters, which is pretty shallow in general terms of the ocean, but pretty deep in terms of what we can do. We can't do that. And they've been known to dive up to 150 meters. They eat a really cool range of food, including octopuses, small rays, cuttlefish, lobsters, sharks, and other fish, mainly like on the bottom. Unfortunately, though, they are endangered, and you can't find them anywhere else in the world. In just the last 40 years, they've lost about 60% of their population. So they are really, really in trouble, these guys. So, aside from just getting a good look at the seafloor, the study did provide amazing insight into some of their behaviours and feeding grounds. The cameras used were designed to be small and not annoying to the sea lions. They did say, like, oh, they're less than 1% of their weight. And I was like, that sounds good, but then you think about, like, what's less than 1% of my weight? Like, I guess my headphones are, and I get annoyed with them on all day, so I don't know. But they look non-cumbersome. They're in space, like, they were pretty sure it wasn't affecting their behaviour. But that is the main reason. You want to make sure that you don't change their behaviour because you are partially trying to look at that as well.
Yep.
So they also were accompanied by GPS trackers and motion sensors. And then they glued these onto their fur, and they were able to actually remove them after the study without hurting them at all. Like, their fur was completely intact. And in total, they got 89 hours of footage, which is just crazy. I only watched the 5 minutes that they posted, and it was honestly mesmerizing.
Yeah, it was glorious, wasn't it?
It's beautiful. It's a seal eye view of life, and I genuinely am a bit jealous. Not of the diet, though. What they're eating looks horrific. I would never want to have to eat that. But I was watching and I was like, why can't I be a seal? I want to go swimming around reefs. South Australia was beautiful. But the footage is not for entertainment. Its primary purpose was actually to capture footage of the underwater habitats so that they could teach a machine learning model so that it could predict the rest. So essentially, they're just trying to predict what the seafloor looks like in areas that they haven't explored. And it apparently did really well, with checks showing that the model was over 98% accurate. The footage captured 6 distinct different habitats, so a couple different algae communities, sponge gardens, invertebrate reefs, and just bare sand. And then the model was able to predict the coverage of these habitats over the rest of the space, which is all really cool, and like it is a fantastic result because it's something that you're just not really able to do otherwise without a lot of time and money.
Exactly.
But to be honest, what really interested me the most about the study has always been the sea lions. And it did find some incredible things about them too. The footage captured the first ever direct evidence of sea lion mothers taking their pups to sea to teach and pass on foraging skills.
Yeah.
Which is kind of monumental. Like, it was thought that they might do this, but having that video evidence is critical. They also got some really great data on how sea lions hunt. So according to the lead author, Nathan Angelicus, they saw a lot of what they call sit and wait predation. So in this situation, the sea lion just sort of sinks to the seafloor and then they wait for a fish they like the look of and then they chase it.
Pounce.
Which I kind of like because I think the visual is just crazy, like of this, like a sea lion just sitting in a crevice. Pouncing, like waiting like a real lion. Like, I think that's just a really funny idea. And can you imagine being a fish, like just swallowing me like, oh my God. Okay, you just feel like looking at this predator just
this big round thing just comes up.
Really jumpy. And then they also have this crazy footage of the sea lions flipping over rocks on the seafloor to find octopuses. So in the footage I saw, there were 2 of them in the area, and I was like, oh, that's cool. There's another one with them. Like, I wonder if they're hunting together. And then there was just this like massive panic. It just so much was happening. There was bubbles, sand, ink. It was like chaos. And there was another sea lion going everywhere. I was like, what the hell is happening? And it took me a really long time to figure out what was happening. Was they were like actively flipping over rocks, finding octopuses, and then trying to chase them down.
Yeah.
And so there was like ink in the water, and then like the camera, because this is quite dark where it is, the camera is like shooting off beams of infrared light so that it can see. I'm pretty sure it doesn't affect what the sea lions can see. But you just have like these flashes of red, and then an octopus, and then ink, and then like it's insanely chaotic. But of course, they also saw what habitats the seals use for feeding, like where they go, what they search for, how they search for it. So while this study was not investigating that specifically, it is still good data and would doubtless inspire further work. The footage to me is just absolutely priceless because it's just one of those like really rare glimpses we get to see of what life really is like under the sea.
And we just played a video from YouTube.
Yeah, we were just watching it in the studio just now, Peter.
Oh, you were? Isn't it great? Did you get to the octopus bit?
No, we didn't. No, just this 1 minute sort of view of it. Yeah.
The octopus bit is nuts. It genuinely blew my mind.
Oh, spoilers.
It's like attaching a GoPro to like a puppy.
Yeah. It's like, those videos
where they put them on cats?
Yes, and then they run around the neighborhood and like battle each other.
Don't have your cats go outside.
Yeah. Bad.
Keep your cats indoors. But it is very much like that, except they're wild, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's really fun to watch.
So cute.
I had to pick a favourite show. No idea.
You're tuned into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea, your weekly dose of science. And we do it for the love of it, but we do need money to keep the station alive, and that's why we got the Radiothon this week. It's a Radiothon special of No Idea with me, Max, V, Issy, Peter and Gabe. Let's talk about the merits of Radiothon. Am I getting my stuff mixed up here? We've got different subscriber tiers that you can subscribe to. If you're under 18, it's $25. If you're a pet, it's $25. If you're concession, it's $40. Nice. A full subscription is $80. A passionate subscription is $140. A super sub like Zed Bones, you're $500. If you're a solo artist, it's $85. If you're a band, it's $160. If you're a business, it's $160. And if you're a household of 4 people, it's $300. And you also go into the running for some fabulous prizes. What do you got, Issy?
We have a variety of prizes, all based on those different tiers. For the individual prizes that are folks who subscribe as a concession, as a full, a passionate, or a super sub, you can get anywhere from a Princess Golden ticket with free entry to any show, a Triffid Gold ticket, Brightside Gold ticket, 5-Star Cinemas Gold ticket, which I will fight the person who wins because it is valued
in the car park.
In the car park.
Oh, get the cars out of there.
Yeah.
Game on.
Game
in the wet.
on.
In the rain.
Yes, sir. Netherworld Custom Cabinet, Dow's Shoes, Radiothon Docks, and Felon's Year of Brewery. Obviously, that is in the over 18 tier, but a variety of different prizes.
Why is that?
That you can pick when you subscribe to 4ZZZ. There's also a variety of other different prizes as well. So, for example, if you get a super sub, you get the BrizFest Posse package, which includes 4 tickets to 6 of the hottest BrizFest venues. Under 18s, you can get some youth docs or some electric guitar. Electric guitar gig bag and a variety of different other things. For the solo artist, you can get a Big Sound Delegate Pass. You can also get basses or guitars. Likewise, for bands, you get all sorts of different variety of kind of prizes. There is so much merch, guitars, amps. We've got
hardware.
For your pets, you get Down Shoes pet collars.
Yes,
which is so stinking cute. For businesses, you can get accounting services and printing business packages. And most importantly, there is a variety of merch that you can pick up as well. So head to 4ZZZ.org.au/support. My goodness.
That's it. Or you can ring downstairs and there's Jordan, Jaden, who else is down there at the moment?
And Steve.
Yeah. On 07 3252 1555. We want to hear the F1 engine a few more times this show, if possible.
If you couldn't tell, the F1 engine is played when someone subscribes.
That's
right.
right.
If you've been confused about why there's no motor app and 2, there's an F1 engine going on in the studio, it's to indicate every time someone subscribes.
It was compromised. We had to talk him out of motor app. He got his F1 engine.
Yes, no motor app this week. We're looking at you, Terry. So, we'll speak to motor app next week.
Yes,
this is dedicated to Radiothon this week. And...
cool. If you call the office, go ring Stephen and go say hi to Jaden downstairs in reception. I was late this morning because I was picking up my sub card.
And you met some people.
I did.
Who loved the show.
I did. I met Simon and Michelle who tuned into the No Idea show every Wednesday when they're driving in the car.
Yeah, cool.
So special thank you to folks like them who support us on air and our silly shenanigans, but most importantly, support the community. They've, I believe Simon was a subscriber since 1975 when we first went on air.
Really?
Yes.
49 years.
I know.
Yeah.
So you're joining a community of people who've been loving Brisbane since 1975. So if not now, when, really? And if you pick that 5-Star Cinemas card, please start preparing for the fight that I will have in the car park for you.
And Gabe, why do you like Triple Z so much?
Why do I like Triple Z so much? Well, Max, I've got a whole thing planned for later on the show. I'm going to talk about the Cosmos magazine and how they're flicking to AI and how
you got to leverage that.
How much science is just disappearing from the media landscape. But I mean, I started at 4ZZZ as a news intern. I think a bunch of us did when I was doing journalism at uni. And immediately just found a place where you can learn and find community and try things out and just make radio and have fun and do stuff for the Brisbane community on a platform that's built for the Brisbane community. It's Brisbane's community radio station, 4ZZZ.
It is.
And you know, 4ZZZ has been amazing to No Idea for over 10 years now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so, you know, giving a place to science radio. So that's why I love 4ZZZ. Everyone has their own reasons for loving 4ZZZ. And yeah, for this, what is it, 10 days of Radiothon. There you go. For this 10 days of Radiothon, as you subscribe, you opt into one of the prizes you want to win. You go into the running for the raffle for that prize, and you get Max
that was
to
Philip,
play whatever that
Philip
was
from
over the
Chelmer.
air.
Thank you, Philip.
Thanks, Philip from Chelmer.
Yeah.
Woo.
There's also, since then, been some developments in the field, including it getting a different name that scientists give it. You ready for this?
Yes.
Peter's going to hate it. It's called the Autosomical Dominant Compelling Helio-Ophthalmic Outburst Syndrome, or the ACHU syndrome.
Oh, nice.
Oh, my God. I do hate... What? There's no reason for that.
Yeah. How good's that, Peter?
Incredible.
I feel like I'm getting a bad rep on this show.
You tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max, V, Issy, Peter, and Gabe. Talk about citizen science.
A citizen has the courage to make the safety of the human race their personal responsibility.
Yeah, well, you know, every year on Radiothon, we get given a theme by the creative people who we keep in a box upstairs and have nothing to do with the science show.
A month before the show.
That's right. And this year the theme was community sounds different. And so as the very not creative people stomping around 4ZZZ, we always take the theme as literally as possible.
Yeah, by making Max do long pauses that sound like dead air.
Yeah. Oh, God. And by interpreting it, community sounds different. The main thing that came to our heads as soon as we started thinking about community and how community is different for a science show is citizen science, community science, citizen science, whatever you want to call it. There you go. There's a subscriber.
Citizen science. How many times do I have to play before I lose my hearing?
And so I was racking my brain trying to figure out what we should do for citizen science. And I thought the best thing I can probably do is just my 4 picks of the best citizen science stuff people can get involved with. Particularly around the Brisbane, Southeast Queensland area. Just the 4 things you can do as a citizen, regular ass person that contribute to science.
That was Zachariah from Tarragindi. Thanks Zachariah.
I'm going to start it off, Max, with one that is, well, it's not technically citizen science. It's more like citizens being used for science.
I think
which I think is okay because it is still relying on everyday people. And it's just the very broad field of getting involved in medical research that does need citizens to participate.
Oh.
So, and I bring it up now because the University of Queensland's Dr. David Klein is currently looking for people with regular back pain for a study into, quote, how back pain symptoms are influenced by biology, psychology, sociology, behaviour and lifestyle.
So when are you signing up?
Yeah, I should.
Someone with bad back pain, where are you going?
And participating in research like that is so important. It's so hard for researchers to get in touch with people too and find people. It's so expensive. It's so hard to build up a good sample size. And for a study like this, I had a quick look at the methods they're looking at. A lot of it just seems to be self-reporting stuff in app form, and you can sort of opt out if you need to opt out. It seems really simple. So if you just search up UQ back pain, you can just get involved, and your data could very realistically become part of a study that then goes on to inform people who suffer back pain, like myself.
Please join up. Gabe needs help.
I do need help. So I think just getting involved in those sorts of things when you can. Psychology studies always need people, regular people, to go through their stuff.
And as someone who's done a lot of those psych studies, I can say I think people would be surprised how many psych studies have to use just uni students because it's the only people they really get available. Because as a psych student, you get told you have to do a certain amount of studies.
That's right.
But what that means is that they don't really get any other people. So there can be real difficulties in psych by trying to find people who are not students.
Population.
Students of psychology. Which is a very small
Doing
subset of
psychology.
people.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so if you want to help out psychology, please join those studies. There are literally so many, and there are even like web portals that they use for you to be able to sign up to these.
So that's my first one. Getting involved in that sort of medical research that needs real people's results and involvement. If you're able to, if you feel like it's something you're up for, you can engage with that. Now, the second one is my big one. This is the one I tell when people talk citizen science. This is the one I fire back, and it's reporting stuff on iNaturalist. iNaturalist is an app. It is an app you can get on your phone, and everyone should have on their phone. It is the most simple and best citizen science app. There are so many citizen science apps. I got to be honest with you, a lot of them are crap, and a lot of them get forgotten about or run out of funding in 2 years, and it gets really painful to keep track of which ones are working. iNaturalist works and has worked and is the gold standard of citizen science. It is, you download it on your phone, you take a photo of anything. It can be a track, it can be an animal, it can be a plant, a fungus, any living thing you can take a photo of. It can be in your backyard, it can be at the top of Mount Kosciuszko. I don't care where it is. You take a photo of it, it can be a feces. Correct, Peter. A lot of feces on Peter's feet, I think. And you just submit it, and if you can take the photo within the app or just on your phone and upload it later. It should carry through all the location and timestamp, which is all it needs to go with the photo. And then if you want to, you can take your best guess at an identification. You can just say mammal if that's all you know. That's fine.
Sometimes you'll give your best guess and you'll think it's really good. And then you'll get 3 people who go, actually, this is a blah, blah, blah.
And the amazing thing about it is that citizen science then uses real citizens, because then some guy called David, who has every species in the area locked in his head,
For real.
will go, oh, I know exactly what kind of little brown bird that is. It's this subspecies, and here's the identification. You can agree, other people pile in and agree, and it becomes what they call a research grade finding.
Mm-hmm.
The reason this is so important is not just because you get distribution data and abundance data of life around you and wherever you are, but it's also in Australia has this secondary point where if you submit something to iNaturalist and it meets that research grade tick, which usually just means you've got a good photo of it and a couple of people agree in an identification, a couple of trusted people on the app agree with it, it automatically gets logged in this government-run thing called the Atlas of Living Australia. You can submit directly to that, but iNaturalist is a way better app. It gets pulled into this government thing, and those records have legitimate impacts on how stuff works across the country. It informs like government level distribution data of species. There's also, if a development is going into an area, if there is a research grade identification that someone has put through iNaturalist and is logged into Atlas of Living Australia for a threatened species, that threatened species exists on that land, and they have to take that into account when they're making that sort of development. So if you can, just uploading photos of what's around you can actually have serious implications for what sort of protections are around, because you have these research grade proven distribution of threatened species and other species in an area that then has to be taken into account when that area is being managed or developed or wherever it might be.
They don't protect what they don't know exists.
Yeah. So iNaturalist is my go-to. Do you want number 3, Max?
Go for it.
Number 3 is, you can't talk about citizen science on a radio show in this country without mentioning Frog ID. Frog ID is the only non-iNaturalist app that I spruik, because all the others are just a clone of iNaturalist. Frog ID is different. Frog ID is run by the Australian Museum. Dr. Jodie Rowley is the one who leads the work, but there's so many other people underneath her. I've met some of them. They're amazing. They're PhD students who are working for not enough money. And
Frog people are great.
And
Frog
so
people are 10 out of 10.
same general idea. You get the app, you just record sounds of frogs. Obviously, you can't see frogs. They're so good at hiding. You just record the sounds, you upload it into the app. It's got some AI that can try and predict what it is. You can have a guess. And then it goes and someone working for Oz Museum actually does an ID. And these have led to huge amounts of records of frogs across the country. The textbooks of where different types of frogs occur are changing because of these citizens reported recordings of frogs. So Frog ID is amazing. And then I've got a fourth bonus one, Max. I can't personally vouch for this one, but I came across it when doing some reading last night. It's a local one. It's called Soils for Science, run out of UQ's Institute for Molecular Bioscience. Their website says Soils for Science is an Australian-first citizen science program dedicated to finding new antibiotics needed in the fight against the scourge of drug-resistant infections, better known as superbugs. And they're hoping to find, well, apparently we do find a lot of these new antibiotics in soils.
Yes.
So they're looking for soil samples to help with that.
Cool.
So that's my four.
That's amazing.
Well done.
Medical research, iNaturalist, Frog ID, and Soils for Science.
We had a text in from Salty who does the Rhinestone Cowgirl on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock, where Issy got the big shout out from.
Thank you, Salty, once again.
And they say, I am constantly turned away from Parkinson's studies because I am too young. All I want to do is help. They're around 38 years old. So I wonder how old you have to be in a Parkinson's study.
I would expect that they would, normally when they put out like a big net asking for research, normally they'll have, I guess some degree of age.
Like a range?
A range,
put out stuff, but that's interesting.
I'm trying to think of any like Parkinson's related like foundations in Australia that might be looking for younger participants. But that's one of the many downsides, I guess, is when it's an illness that isn't related to, is associated with a certain age group.
And if you go to the bottom of the playlist, Gabe, there's a text for you there.
Is there now?
There is.
I think I would meet criteria for enrolling in the back pain research, i.e. 34 years as a registered nurse. Ironically, first injury occurred while working in the spinal injury.
Oh, no.
I have a heat pack on my neck after night shift.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yikes.
Oh, that's rough.
Sorry, Chris. Yikes.
Oh, Chris.
Dark Mirror about
Mirror?
dreams. That's the one.
Yeah. Dark Mirror.
That's the DC version.
I feel like there was an episode of
Featured in a 4ZZZ.
Nice. That's a throwback.
You get a bit of that, don't you? Okay, it's me, Max, Issy, V, Peter. What do you got for us, Gabe?
What I got for you, Max, on our Radiothon special for this year is something that I don't think we can not talk about on the show this week, which is that Cosmos magazine has been caught up in a bit of an AI scandal. So Cosmos Mag, they've been around for 20 years. It was established 20 years ago, and it has been one of the few sort of
and they're sponsored by NASA, aren't they?
CSIRO.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, I would have been
Large on that one.
just saying anything. Just throwing it out there.
So 20 years ago it was established. It was like one of the only dedicated science magazines that there was, and has continued to be for the last few years. Earlier this year, there were reports that half their staff had been laid off. According to In Daily, that actually meant it was more like 5 out of 8. Oh, thank you for subscribing. Get used to it, Max. I'm starting to like it. You're Pavloving me into this sound. But there were reports earlier this year that half the staff were laid off. Apparently, according to In Daily, that was actually 5 of 8 people took voluntary redundancies at Cosmos, cutting it down to 3 dedicated staff.
There were only 8 people.
There were only 8, and the
3.
rest has been written by freelancers, which is something we see a lot across the sort of non-mainstream media landscape. So it was sort of 3 dedicated staff and then freelancers. And what's happened recently is that this story was broken by the ABC, and that's kind of where we're relying on for the reporting of this. But they found that for, I think, 2 weeks, about a month ago, they were Cosmos trialed some articles that were written by AI, and they had a little tag at the top saying written by Cosmos's AI. I believe it was using the ChatGPT 4 to write content.
Stephen from Annalee, by the way.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen.
And the idea, from what I understand behind it, was taking articles that had already been published by Cosmos and then using the AI was rewriting or at least restructuring that into things that would be generate clicks easily, like quick explainers about stuff. Where someone might write an article about a particular phenomenon, the AI might take that and a couple other Cosmos articles and turn it into an explainer of what is a black hole or something like that. But they did this without apparently all of these 3 maybe editorial staff knowing, but definitely some freelancers have come out and said that they weren't aware that their work was going to be used like this. Probably it might not even be legal for their work to have been used like this because their agreement didn't include
AI
this sort of provision for AI scraping.
Correct. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. So there's been a lot of backlash about it. This idea of sort of cutting staff and then flipping to AI to generate clicks on stuff and push articles out. And like you said, Max, CSIRO apparently took over the magazine in June this year, I think. So it's all sort of come off the back of that. It was funded. This AI push was funded by a Walkley Foundation grant.
What is going on with that? That's terrible. Okay.
A lot of weird stuff going on, but effectively, Cosmos has tried AI in actual science reporting, which is a bit terrifying. I don't think anyone's opposed to AI being used to help reporting, but not to actually produce written pieces at the expense of real people who are losing jobs in the industry. And it struck me a bit on Radiothon week, Max, where we're talking about community sounds different and talking about the need for community radio, when I suddenly had this sort of pang of like realizing how much science journalism has shut down in the country. And it'd be funny if it wasn't so genuinely tragic that this show is probably the only science radio show broadcasting out of Brisbane, at least to, on
a regular basis,
on a regular basis. That's it.
Not just your science week where some people pop up after that. But, And I might be the biggest science radio broadcasting out of Queensland. I couldn't find, I don't know of any others bigger dedicated science radio shows in Queensland. Obviously there are other shows like Science Show on ABC that broadcast into Queensland but not out of Queensland on a regular basis. So it just sort of got me thinking about, there is a genuine space now in science reporting, particularly on radio in this country, where we're down to community radio stations, and it's really just a couple of the main cities and some other community radio stations that have dedicated science shows every week, or at least on a regular basis. And without subscriptions, those science radio shows stop. Exactly.
So it was, I kind of went into it being like, let's bag on Cosmos for taking some stupid decision on AI and they'll regret now. And it ended up being really depressing about, oh my goodness, this is like science radio is down to sort of ABC and community radio outlets, and then some odd bits of special broadcasts in news packages, and the dedicated science journalism and science field is just rapidly shrinking and continuing to shrink. And so, Max, you asked me earlier in the show about why I like 4ZZZ and why I subscribe to 4ZZZ and keep doing this. And like I said then, that 4ZZZ has hosted No Idea for 10 years, over 10 years. It started with Reese, who is a massive part of the station and continues to be in spirit. Moved to Reese and T, then it moved to T and I, then it was you and me, Max, for a while, and now we've brought in these clowns, V and Issy.
And are you lucky for
it? Thank you
that
for
subscriber
subscribing.
is just saying, yes, we like.
That was. They were waiting for me to mention you guys. And so it's evolved into this thing that we keep going 52 weeks a year. But 4ZZZ hasn't just sort of shoved us in somewhere to get a science show on. They've given us 2 hours of daytime radio every single week. Expanded the show, made it into a podcast to keep it going out. Like 4ZZZ's gone above and beyond what it would need to do for science reporting on a station that is meant for community and music. They've put 2 hours of major radio space in for science radio. And so I always feel like we need to pull our weight and not just be a drag on the 4ZZZ engine, and do and
Is that pointing to any part of the show specifically?
Oh dear.
No names named.
FIA approved, by the way.
Yeah. But to do that, Max, we've been told we need to hit a. Can we say what the number is that we're aiming for as a station?
If we can get to 2,000, it'd be great.
Yeah, 1,500 is our base we're shooting for. 2,000 would be amazing. So to do that, to hit that 1,500 is like an absolute minimum for our 2 hours of radio. It's 240 hours Radiothon. For our 2 hours, we need to pull in, I think it's like a 12 and a half people, which we've done. We've had
Thank you, everyone.
17 of you subscribe already. But realistically, way less people listen in the shows in the in the early hours of the morning and stuff.
Not because they're bad. They are incredible. Just because people are asleep, which is a mistake.
Yeah.
Stay awake, listen to those
And
shows.
so I figured let's double that for ours, to be fair. So 25 is what we're shooting for by the end of the show. We're at 17 now.
Yeah.
We've got another half hour of the show.
We do.
So if you're listening to the show live, or if you're listening to it we're at 18 now. You're listening to it back on demand, or if you're listening to the podcast, these next few days, there's 5 days left of Radiothon. When we can, this is the 10 days we dedicate to keeping the station running, so that we can keep pumping out good radio for the other.
That was
51
Frankie
weeks a
from
year.
Annalee, another Annalee.
Annalee's popping off.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Frankie. So we need a couple more to pull our weight and to keep this science radio contributing back to 4ZZZ, which has given so much to it. So that's me done. I've done my Suki bit.
Just to add to that, Gabe mentioned if you're listening to the podcast to, be here during Radiothon. But if you're listening to the podcast, you could be listening to this in a week, 4 months, 2 years. And I just want to put out that there is never a bad time to subscribe. There's a good time to subscribe, and that's Radiothon right now. But there's never a bad time to subscribe. So if next week you're like, damn, I completely forgot, doesn't mean to put it off. Just do it right then and there.
So we're going to get into some space news soon. We'll play a bit of music. And while the music's playing, all I want you to do, if you've never subscribed to 4ZZZ, or if you've
head over to the website.
That's it. 4ZZZ.org.au/Radiothon, or just search 4ZZZ, look for the Radiothon buttons. Have a look at the options that are there. It starts from $25 for a kid, $40 for a concession, and there's other options to go from there. You can do pets. Have a look at the options. Have a look at the prizes you can go into the running for over the next few days, and have a look at the merch too. There's amazing merch on there. There's merch that I genuinely wear, like the native bees tee. There's another one.
90.
Ooh.
So just have a look. If you've never done it before, go on the website and have a look.
Or ring up if you don't like computers. If you 07 3252 1555. Stephen's down there. Jordan's down there. And Jaden.
Yes.
Job done.
Yeah, and if you hate technology, just come on in.
You can physically visit.
Come physically visit. We've got a new door that we like to show off.
Izzy likes to talk to you. So.
I do. I love to yap. So it could not be easier to support community radio in the year of 2024. So come join the community and get some warm inner glow. We've been getting some love on the text line as well.
We have.
So come join the community, develop a parasocial relationship, and maybe learn some science along the way.
We're gonna hear from
parasocially love you all.
I learned that you can hear the difference between different water temperatures when they're poured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour one after the other into a different glass, and you have to tell me which one is which temperature. I've got a hot and a cold. You ready? Yep. Right, here's the first one. Any thoughts?
Is this the bodily fluids again? Yeah, I'm saying cold.
It sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Here's the second one.
Well played.
Shut up.
You tuned to 4ZZZ. And the show is No Idea, your weekly dose of science with me, Max, V, Izzy, Peter, and Gabe. And we had another person from Annalee. We had Edgar from Annalee subscribing. Thank you, Edgar.
Thank you, Edgar, and thank you, Annalee.
Thank you, Annalee. Yes.
Annalee.
Annalee has been bringing it.
Yeah.
Someone is walking around Annalee with a boom box. Just no idea.
No idea. Space news. Well, the saga continues on the ISS, the Starliner.
With the astronauts that are definitely not stuck. Definitely there.
There's a real
they want to be.
There's a real possibility that Boeing, the Boeing designed and built spacecraft will need to be released from the ISS with no one on board.
Released back into the wild.
This will free up a docking port for another spacecraft to serve as a space taxi if necessary for the two not stranded astronauts. Another scenario will see a SpaceX Crew Dragon launch with only 2 people on board instead of the usual 4. After their 6-month stay on the ISS, they could bring back the 2 not stranded astronauts. There will be an announcement later this week. Have you heard of the what do you call him? An explorer, Australian Eric Phillips?
No, but we just got a subscriber who might.
We did.
It's Eric Phillips now.
He has been announced as a crew member with an upcoming flight a 4-person flight with SpaceX announced on August 12. It's called Fram 2 in honour of the Norwegian ship that made pioneering voyages to the Arctic and Antarctic between 1893 and 1912.
That's a deep cut, yeah.
Yeah. Throughout the 3 to 5 day mission, the crew plans to observe Earth's polar regions through Dragon's bespoke cupola window at an altitude of 425 kilometres to 450 kilometres, leveraging insight from space physicists and citizen scientists to study unusual light emissions resembling auroras. And now for some more citizen science, the Nancy Grace Roman and Habitable Worlds Observatory, NASA's upcoming flagship astrophysics missions, will be open to professional researchers and interested members of the public. Exoplanet research has a long involvement with citizen science. So NASA's TESS mission, and the now retired Kepler mission, which are responsible for the vast majority of exoplanet discoveries to date, made observations freely available to the public immediately after processing. This open science policy paved the way for the public to get involved with NASA exoplanet science. NASA Planet Hunters TESS project invites the public to classify exoplanet light curves from TESS online. Another project, Exoplanet Watch, allows citizen scientists to gather data about known exoplanets, submit their observations to NASA's public data archive, and receive credit if their observation is used in a scientific paper. Participants don't even need their own telescope. Exoplanet Watch also curates data from robotic telescopes for users to process. Anyone across the world who has access to a smartphone or laptop can fully participate. Peter, what do you got for us?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I'd much rather be a planet hunter than just in Planet Watch. Mm-hmm. They should really reconsider that name. That's boring. Planet Hunter any day. It makes me feel like Indiana Jones or I've forgotten the name of the other one. I never watched those movies. But what I do
Eric
have
Phillips.
is some really cool science. Yeah, me, Eric Phillips. What Eric Phillips, have for you today is some really cool science about Mars. And do you know why I'm saying it?
No.
It's because it's about oceans. Yeah. So it turns out there are actually oceans worth of water on Mars. So the way they figured this out is they got the InSight lander. This is by the University of California, Berkeley, by the way, if anyone would like to guess the QS
24.
ranking.
20.
15.
Well done, B. It's actually 12.
Whoa!
Very close.
Hey.
You may have been quick, Max, but you were not correct. So as they were basically got the InSight lander, and then they analysed seismic waves that were detected by the lander. And by analysing the seismic waves, they can kind of see like what's in the geology underneath. And what they found was that about 11 to 20 kilometres under the surface of Mars is this zone in the rock, which has lots of pores and fractures and things like that is filled with liquid water. So just to be clear, it's not like a big underground pool or a cavern. It's just that this rock is filled with water. So it's groundwater, essentially, what we would call this on Earth. But it's 11 to 20 kilometres deep. Now, they thought that was really cool because apparently the oceans on Mars that we knew existed there at the surface disappeared about 3 billion years ago. Boo, sad. Every planet should have an ocean. It just makes you cooler. But yeah, they just disappeared. They were like, well, where'd it go? And also, what happened? Because we know that water is essential to life. So it is good news for people who care about those oceans because it seems like they just sunk into the planet a bit. And then also, apparently, there's more water in these underground areas than there ever were in the oceans, which is kind of cool. So more water's appeared. But it's not very good if you're the sort of person who's like, who doesn't really care about what Mars is now, but wants Mars to be a future colony. Not great for you. Very difficult. Like, apparently on Earth, we struggle to even go a kilometre deep. So 11 to 20 kilometres deep is a pretty big ask to be able to find water. And even then, you don't really know what's in that water. Like, same thing with groundwater here. So, little bit of an issue for those people. But personally, for me, I think it's really exciting because it is just a huge amount of water. And we know that water is integral to life. And some scientists from this research believe that it kind of gives us an idea that there could still be life on Mars. There there could have been life. We don't, I don't have any confirmation either before
Why not?
or now.
Mm.
But they think with this water and the abundance of water, it's far more likely. And so it's just a question of how we could even find it and test it. Yeah. So
Cool,
that's
cool.
really exciting. Oceans on Mars, guys. We
Oceans
just-
11.
Deep, deep oceans.
Now, Max, the text line's been going off, and Pez texted in saying, "I never thought I'd hear such deep conversation on the topic of sneezing. This is very interesting."
This is
I
what
mean,
you get on No Idea.
this is what we're serving up.
It's par for the course.
Is there deeper stuff to talk about? Yes. Are we going to talk about it? Maybe later.
It's called Motor Race. Let's go. You tuned to 4ZZZ, but not for much. Well, no. Well, I missed that, didn't I? The show is No
Wow.
Idea. The show is No Idea, but not for much longer.
This is why he needs to stay on script. That sting couldn't be more perfect. We've had some text come in from Chris saying subscriber signs to get a dopamine hit after a call out commonly called warm inner glow. Nebatron's texted in saying, Anya, No Idea DJ crew for giving your time and effort to Zed to keep the station going and the glow flowing. Thank you to everyone who subscribed over the last few hours. I think we're like a couple short, maybe a few short of our 25 goal that we set for ourselves. It's pretty awesome. I think over the next few minutes and well, as the podcast goes out, hopefully we can hit that goal and make sure that we're doing our bit to keep 4ZZZ running so 4ZZZ can keep No Idea, your weekly dose of science running. And if you need a better idea, our theme this week or this year for Radiothon was community sounds different, and I don't think you need better evidence of how different community radio science can sound than the last 2 hours. We've had tipsy fruit flies, archaeologists studying the International Space Station, underwater sea lion cams, and AI spoiling science reporting. Nice mixed bag, like we say, Max. What was that line? Is there more important stuff to talk about? Yes. Are we going to talk about it? Maybe later. We'll be back next week to talk more science. I've got some stuff on Aussie coffee beans and why they are a bit crap. Next week.
Oh, really? Controversial.
Yeah, some genetic stuff into Aussie grown beans. We'll get into that next week.
You should be glad this is a radio platform and they can't see your face.
Yeah.
Because baristas around Australia are going to be.
There's some good stuff, but let's be honest, coffee beans were not built for this climate. We'll get into that next week. You can catch this show on the 4ZZZ.org.au website or on whatever podcasting platform you use. Just look up No Idea 4ZZZ. That's No with a K. No Idea. We got a podcast report, Peter.
You'll know that it's No Idea and it's the right podcast because we are actually the highest rated podcast on Spotify and from what I've heard, Apple Music. Are we the top rated? Maybe no, but we are the highest rated on par with many other podcasts.
Bang on 5
stars. 5 stars, baby. And you can help us stay there. If you listen to, I think it's 2 episodes, you can leave a review. So if you listen to 2 episodes, they're fantastic. Max thinks we're on par with one of the best science shows in the world.
I am actually, yeah, totally, yeah.
So if you listen to 2 of our shows, which will be fun and wonderful, then you can go in and leave us a 5-star review. And while you're at it, subscribe because then we can keep giving you 5-star podcasts.
Thanks for hanging out with us, and thank you genuinely to everyone who subscribed during our show. Thanks, Max. Thanks, Issy. Thanks, V. And thanks, Peter, for your stories this week.
And we'll speak to you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
I'm a goddamn marvel of modern science.